Hello, I'm Kirsha Fox, author of Son of Deception and The White Leaf Child. I am a homeschooling mom, gamer, and avid reader and author. My co-host Julia J.K. Allen can't join us tonight, but I'm really excited to introduce to you Margaret Montet. She is a college librarian and professor who writes and speaks about music, blending in elements of memoir, travel, art, and literature. Her creative nonfiction works have been published in several fine periodicals and anthologies, and her collection of travel essays was released in July 2021. We're so excited to have her. Hello.
Hi.
So, can you tell me about your writing journey? What got you started writing and why?
Well, I've always been a writer. I'm the kid in school. If there was a choice between taking a final or writing a paper, I would write the paper. I enjoy doing research and I enjoy writing, so it's always been a fun thing for me. And as I grew up and I became a librarian, I thought, I want to write and I want to write about places. So I was doing a lot of travel articles, where to go, where to stay, what to see, where to eat. And I did that for a long time. And then I got a little tired of that. I wanted to do something more literary. So I went to Cedar Crest College, did an online program there, which was wonderful for me because it met in 3 different European cities, one each summer. And we stayed there for 2 weeks and just learned about the culture and the art and the music and the history and the literature, all of that stuff. And so that was the genesis for my first book. My first collection of essays was the things I was inspired to write at our residencies and in between them. So I was doing travel and I was adding art, music, literature, history to them. And I thought, gee, I really like doing this. But then the pandemic happened and suddenly I can't travel. So, what am I going to do? So I thought, I know, I'll just swing the camera around and I'm going to write about music. And if I can put any travel in there, but also literature and art. So I'm just putting the emphasis on music for my next collection of essays. So same person, same kind of style, but with a different emphasis. And I'm really excited about that. And in between, I wrote a short book. My publisher does this one and done series. And these books are very small and they're meant to be read in one sitting or one weekend or one train ride or whatever. And mine is about my family, my ancestors who lived in Brooklyn, down to my mother. My mother left Brooklyn. And I just wanted to learn about, I live within an hour and a half of Brooklyn, but I never went there because by the time I came along, everybody had moved away. So I wanted to learn about this city. So I did. And I treated it kind of as I did my nerd traveler locations. And I made lots of different trips though, went different places and tried to imagine, would my ancestors have known this place? Would my ancestors have gone to Coney Island? Would they have ridden the cyclone? Just thinking about what would have been possible. So that's a little book and that's coming out in September. So that's pretty much what I've been doing. And I do a lot of essays. One I was working on a whole different one today, but always writing.
So you're not just a traveler, you're a time traveler.
Kind of. Not in the pop culture sense though.
Yes, of course. But I think that's the closest thing to time travel we can get is to walk those places and see those same sights and to feel ourselves in those places that used to be.
Exactly.
Yeah. So music, is it music history? Is it a particular genre of music? What's your music specialty?
Well, I started playing the clarinet when I was 10 years old. And I followed through, picked up some other instruments, I got a bachelor's degree in music theory, and I stayed around for a master's degree because I didn't think I was finished. So music theory is the thing I have papers to prove I know about.
Mm-hmm.
But I love music history. That's kind of what I write about now. I don't write about theory. That would be like watching paint dry for readers. But music history and all kinds of classical music and opera, I find those have a lot of depth and I can write about them. Then again, for this next collection of essays, I did a whole essay on 1960s bubblegum pop music, like the Monkees and Partridge Family is the 70s, Monkees and other kind of silly pop groups because I just enjoy them so much.
They did bring a lot of joy, I think,
Yes.
in something that was considered like you're supposed to be serious before then, right?
Right.
Serious business. And they're like, yeah, we do what we want, right? Awesome. Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about your writing process? How do you go from like idea to finished manuscript? Like I imagine that's quite a lot of research you do in the
Yeah.
middle.
I I keep a notebook for each one of my projects, a dedicated notebook, and I have a standard list of questions that I try to answer or prompts, questions and
Mhm.
prompts. And I use part of the notebook for just taking notes from a book or a concert or a tour or an interview, whatever I might be doing. So I have it all together and I look at that book, that notebook, as kind of a slow cooker with all those ideas in it. They kind of take on
Mhm.
a shape. And I also, my other technique, I love to do mind maps. So I'll start with my central concept in the middle of the paper and I'll just draw all of these branches coming out of it with all the subtopics. And it's amazing the connections I find and just I look like I'm really smart after I've studied my mind map. I used to take them to book club meetings, book discussion group, and I would have these connections and things. Oh, did you notice that this is the same as that? You know, so I do that for my projects too. So
Mhm.
once I have all my notes and I have a mind map with my main topics, then I just kind of figure out what would be the most logical and interesting way to present these ideas.
Mhm.
And then I start typing. I usually write in longhand and my first typed is my first draft.
Mhm.
And that's how I get to an actual essay.
Okay.
Lots of
That
revision
I
though.
love no, like, I love mind mapping. I do a lot of that, particularly when I'm trying to plot and figure out the events and the themes and the like, it helps me take a lot of different information and make it, organized and less blobby, you know? Like,
Yes.
it's all just
Yes.
one big pot until you separate it out into all its categories. And I'm also smiling because, I also started on clarinet. And then I also studied music in college, and took a big circuitous route, but ended up writing as well. So I feel you on that. All right. So for you, what would you say is the most important part of writing?
That's tough because whatever part I'm involved in is the most important part right then. Today I was typing an essay. I didn't type the whole thing, just a section of it. And to me, right now, that's the most important part because I'm going from my notes and my messy draft into something that's
Mhm.
typed and looks more organized. But then when I finish typing two more little pieces, then I'm going to be into the revision process and I will be looking at did I use the right word here? Did I mention this thing that I'm assuming the reader knows? Did I mention, so now that's the most important part. So that's a tough question to answer.
Mhm. I am just over here feeling like a sphinx who's asked you a riddle, and you're like, "Ah, yes, the most important part is the part that you're doing." I love that answer. I absolutely do. I feel like you could have like a poster with that, like
Yeah.
an inspiration quote. The most important part of writing is the one you're doing right now. Awesome. Do you have a favorite author, and what do you feel they do best?
I have lots of favorite authors. And if you ask me on different days, I'll probably say different names. But I love John McPhee. I read the first book that I read of his was when I was in 10th grade, and it was about the Pine Barrens, which are in New Jersey. It's this strange environment with obviously lots of pine trees, but there's certain kind of animals, and cranberries grow there in bogs, and blueberries. And I just learned all this stuff about this area of my state that I had been through 100 times, but I didn't know anything about its uniqueness. And the way John McPhee presented it was just so interesting to
Mhm,
read. So I love him. I love Joan Didion. I love her perspectives on things. I love Paul Theroux, the travel writer. I just love how he talks to people while he's traveling and he gets so much good information out of them. I don't know that I could do that, maybe once in a while, but not as consistently as he does.
mhm,
Nathaniel Philbrick, he has these wonderful historical books
mhm.
that dive deep into the history, and they're well researched, and it's like reading fiction, but it's not. It's better because it's true. It really happened.
Yes,
So
yes.
I have a whole list of them.
Mhm. There is so much I have so much respect because for the talent of people who are able to take nonfiction and write it in a way that's a narrative that becomes a living story that brings it alive to you and makes you care. And then you have to stop and go, wow, this is real. Like that's amazing.
Yeah.
I really love that. Can I ask your opinion on like Bill Bryson? Because when I read your bio, I was like, oh, so that's the author that I've read who usually does that.
Hmm. Bill Bryson, I enjoy his books very much. Even better than reading his books is listening to him read them on an audio. He's
Oh, I
just
imagine.
so funny, and he does his share of research. Very intelligent man, very unique books. Yeah, I like him a lot.
Okay. Um, if you could give a new author one piece of advice, what would you tell them?
Just one piece. I would say just write. You can revise later.
Hmm.
It's not going to come out of your pen in order. And sometimes it's not going to be told in a linear fashion anyway. So just write it and fix it
Hmm.
later.
Absolutely. I love that advice. I do the same thing where I just write what is in my head. And later on, I chop into pieces and rearrange it the way
Hmm.
it's supposed to go. So I
And
kind of weave it together again. But
sometimes physically chop it with scissors and
yeah,
move it around. I've done that.
yes, yes, it's book surgery and
Hmm.
it makes it better. You just, carve off all the things that don't belong and keep the good, and it comes together. I love it. Okay, so everyone's pretty busy these days. How do you make time for writing? Is it your full-time job or is it part-time?
It's part-time, unfortunately. I'm a full-time librarian at a college, and I
That's
do a
great.
lot of extra stuff. I usually teach at least one class, one course during the semester. This semester, I'm not. I was blessed with COVID at the beginning of the semester, and I just said, nope, take it back. I am not going to be able to do it. So I'm just doing the full-time job and writing. And
Huh.
I I find myself writing the most on weekends, of course, because I have big chunks of time and I can sit and really concentrate. And then, since I do a lot of research, I can sneak that in during the week. Maybe I'll just sit down with my computer and I need to look up something like a biography of someone. I'm not going to dwell on their biography, but I need some facts about this person.
Mm-hmm.
So I can fit those kinds of things. And of course, I write it down in my dedicated notebook. So it's there. And a lot of those kind of questions come up as I'm paging through my notebook. Oh, I'm going to need to look up this. I need a biography of this person. I need some details on this building, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two kinds of writing going on. There's the real creative stuff, and then there's the nuts and bolts research.
Oh, of course, of course. There's the thinking, the stewing, the learning process. Yeah, and then after that, then you can put it on paper, but not until you digest it down a bit. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. What is your favorite part of writing?
Um, that's another question where I could answer by saying, well, it's the part I'm in right now. But no, I think my favorite part is when I've done most of the revisions that are going to happen and I'm reading it and saying, yeah, this is all right. I think I like this. And maybe I'll find a word that doesn't quite work and I'll find another one, or maybe I'll fix some kind of grammatical issues. But for the most part, it flows and I like it. So
Mhm.
that point where I've done most of the work and I'm just reading it as a reader would.
Right there at the finish line when it's all
Hmm.
polished and beautiful and almost ready.
But I enjoy all the other parts too.
For
So
sure. Okay, well, do you have a least favorite part then?
no.
Oh, that's amazing. That's great.
I know some people hate certain parts of writing, but I really don't. I enjoy all of it.
I would say the most common answer we get to that question is editing. A lot of people don't like the editing process.
Oh, well, no, I think that's fascinating.
Mhm. All right. Do you ever deal with like writer's block? Is that ever a struggle for you?
No. I always have ideas, and those notebooks that I mentioned, they keep me going. So maybe I'm not doing the creative kind of writing, but there's a whole lot of stuff I want to look up or think about. So I really don't have block ever. I
Mhm.
don't have enough time to be blocked. When I have that precious chunk of time,
Mhm.
I'm ready to use it, and I've thought about how I'm gonna use it. So, like, Thursday, I'm thinking about Saturday and, "Oh, I'm gonna write about this, and I'm gonna have to do some research," but yeah, so I kinda know what's
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah, I think that there is value to allowing yourself time to think about it and really have it ready to go in your mind. So when you sit down, it's ready and you know what's coming out. Yeah. Um, I'm a mom. I have 4 kids, and that's pretty much my what I do too. All day while I'm taking care of them, I have this going in my head so that when it's evening and I can finally sit, it's ready.
Yeah.
I
I
think.
do a lot of crocheting and quilting. You can see some of my things hanging there.
Mhm,
Um, and while I'm doing those, I will be thinking about what I'm writing, and
mhm.
it helps. It's kind of like going for a walk in nature,
Yeah.
same idea. As I'm doing it, I'm thinking about the writing that has to happen next.
Absolutely. There's something really freeing to your mind about having your hands be busy. Like the motor part of you is going, and that, like, it untethers you almost so you can be in that thinking, creative, wonderful place.
Yeah.
Okay. What would you say has been your most significant writing victory so far?
Getting that book published.
Yes.
I had it written. I was happy with it. It had been through all the mentors in my MFA program and a a an editor, and I was having trouble finding an agent. And I finally found a wonderful woman at a conference,
Mhm.
and she was so excited about my book. She thought it was a breath of fresh air, and she took me on, and she sent maybe 10 queries out. And she had been working in the industry for a long time, so she had a lot of contacts. And then she emailed me and she said, "Oh, I hate to tell you this, but I'm ill. And so I'm not going to be able to send your book out." And I said, "Okay." I was really busy at that moment. So I said, that's okay. We'll pick it up later. And then I happened to meet the publisher that I went with, Read Furiously, Samantha. I had Here's a tip. I submitted some essays to their anthologies that they were
Mhm.
publishing, and we talked back and forth. I said, "Oh, well, I have this book written. You might be interested if you like my
Mhm.
essays." And so she said, "Oh, yes." So I said, "Well, I had an agent and she got sick, so let me see what she says." And so I emailed her, and her husband wrote back and said she had passed away a couple months
Oh
before.
no.
I know. What? So I was so disappointed because she was such a lovely woman, and I thought, "Oh, we're going to be pals for a long time," but no. So I thought, "Well, you know what? I'm just going to go it without an agent." And I've been very happy with that publisher. So it was, I mean, it wasn't the best thing that she passed away, but since I met this particular publisher, it was a success story. So
It worked out.
very happy with them.
So I like how the anthology submissions kind of got your foot in the door,
Hmm.
the publish, for the book.
Yeah,
That's
I wasn't even doing that consciously. I just
Mhm.
saw that they were doing an anthology about New Jersey, and that's where I live. So I have lots of stuff to say. And then they did another one and another one. So they were familiar with my writing and they liked it.
Mhm.
So, and just my luck, the second essay I sent them for the second anthology is about grounds for sculpture in Hamilton, which is
Mhm.
a sculpture garden basically, but a beautiful place. And what do you know? The publisher and her husband got married there. So I struck gold.
Mhm.
That was the second one I wrote for them. So they noticed me,
Mhm. Mhm.
and that was the success story. Yay!
It's so funny how sometimes things just fall into place perfectly and you didn't even see it coming.
Yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, you were doing the work, your work was good. So when the opportunity came up, you were ready.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's great. What are you reading right now?
I have a couple of books open. I'm preparing to do a lecture on the Bayeux Tapestry
Mhm.
from 1066. It tells the story of William the Conqueror taking over England for the crown that he thought was rightfully his. Um, we don't know who made this tapestry, and it's really an embroidery, but it's in France, and I went to see it in December, and it's just amazing. It's about, I think it's 220 feet long and 20 inches high. You can't even picture it in your mind. You have to see it. But
Mhm.
anyway, I'm reading a book about that, which is a fantastic book. I bought it there at the museum's bookshop, and it's got so much great information. My lecture is about an hour and 15 minutes. I could do 3 hours easy. So anyway, I'm reading that about the tapestry, but I'm also reading some Agatha Christie, Miss Marple short stories as a balance
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
the scholarly Bayeux Tapestry
Oh yeah.
1066 medieval stuff.
Mhm. Quite a lot of authors have to like read something other than what they're writing just to give themselves a breath of
Right.
something
Hmm.
to refresh. Yeah.
I always have 2 or 3 books going.
Yeah. Particularly the dark romance authors, they say they need to read something light and fuzzy once in a while.
It helps.
It does. It does. Do you have any like copies of anything you've published on hand that you could show the camera, or would you like to talk about any of your pieces? Yeah, Nerd Traveler. There you go. Can you tell
That's
us a little bit about that one?
Well, this is the one. It's 13 travel essays, but I talk about music and art and literature and history. And I just think it just took on a life of its own. I was writing about places where I went with my MFA program cohort, and then other any place I went. And then I realized, well, I can look at my own town as if I'm a traveler there. So I
Mhm.
start and end in Cape May, which is my original home. It's at the very most southern tip of New Jersey. And I've lived there part-time all of my life, full-time a little bit. And so I just wrote about that in the beginning and the end, and in between I go to Ireland and Vienna, New York, Los Angeles, Barcelona, all these different places. Oh, Prague, can't forget Prague. And I
Mhm.
just had the best time looking at all these different places. And when I was in Vienna, I realized, Vienna wants me to go to Mozart's house. Vienna wants me to learn about Johann Strauss, the Waltz King. So that became a thing. What does this city want me to know about? What do they brag about? So that became one of the things I started looking at
Mhm.
for each place.
Okay. Um, so there are quite a lot of travel writers. What would you say that is something that you do uniquely that would be, I know it's your voice, but what sets you apart from a lot of other, more travel, other travel writers?
Well, it's the thing I kind of identified early in the book. It's nerd traveler. So it's the nerdiness.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized when traveling with others, except for one person, my sister, she was kind of nerdy too. Um, I'll try to learn the language before I go to a place. Not I won't be fluent, but
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to order food and ask where the hotel is and say certain things. And I wanna know about the culture and the literature and the art and the music and the history, and
Mm-hmm.
so I read books before I go, and then I buy books when I'm there, and then I read more books when I come home, and so it's just that idea of I'm not real. Of course, I like to go to nice restaurants, but that's not the number one thing I'm looking for. I'm looking for the culture. I want to kind of, as you said, time travel. Oh, this is where Mozart lived. This is where Beethoven lived. I want to see what they saw and try to understand things the way they saw them. And I don't think everybody does. Some travel writers do.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can just be silly sometimes and make a weird observation,
Mm-hmm.
a place or a funny thing that happens or so I think that's my uniqueness. The nerd. The
Awesome.
nerd thing.
Yes. I love it. Okay. Yeah, we've just flown right through the questions really fast. You provide very like tidy answers that are they're very good. They're
Thank
very
you.
good. I guess I'm saying, is there anything else you'd like to talk about or share that maybe I didn't ask you?
I can tell you that one of the best received essays was about Barcelona and specifically a day trip my group took to Montserrat,
Mm-hmm.
which is a mountain and it looks like a serrated knife blade. And I was so busy getting ready to submit all of my graduation stuff, I didn't for once do the nerd thing and research this place. I knew we were going there, but I thought, okay, I'll find out about it when we get there. I'm sure there'll be a tour. Well, what I didn't realize, the rest of my group went for a hike up a mountain. I didn't really feel like doing that. I don't like
Mm-hmm.
those high altitudes.
Yeah.
So I kind of hung around there was a cathedral and a like a cloister, and I saw a lot of people over by the cathedral, but I didn't really pursue it. I didn't know how long colleagues were going to be on this hike. But I
Mhm.
found out later from the little book I bought that there is a medieval Madonna and child. And the wood, I don't know if it was originally black, but it turned black over the years. And it's this thing that people come from all over to see. And I was completely unaware of it. So in my essay, I fess up and I say, this is the one time I didn't research before I went. And boy, am I disappointed because I love medieval stuff. I would have really liked to get in that line and see the Black Madonna, La Morenetta, she's called.
Mhm.
So people like me telling about that story because it kind of shows I'm not always on top of things. I messed this trip up, but it looks like I'm going to Barcelona in the spring. And I'm thinking, I bet I could get on a bus and go to Montserrat and see La Morenetta and kind of make it up to myself. And that'll
Mhm.
be another essay because you can't really update them once they're written.
Mm, not the print versions, no.
No.
That's a really good story, though. I think that's really relatable because we've all had those moments of going like, I was right there, like, and I totally missed this opportunity that I really would have loved to have. But there's that story of hope too, of well, I'm going to go back and I'm going to see that thing
Yeah.
again. It's really relatable. Okay. Have you ever been given any writing advice from somebody that like you're just like that's terrible writing advice? Why would you say that?
Well, the old adage, write what you know.
Hmm.
Well, not for me because I want to learn new things with my writing.
Mm-hmm.
And if I just write what I know or if just write about where I've been, I think it'd be kind of flat. It's
Mm-hmm.
that hope and wonder and bewilderment that make it more interesting for me and for the reader.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, I'm
It
not going to just write what I know.
it sounds like you're going on a journey and you're taking your reader with you, and I think that's what makes it come alive.
Hmm.
And I can see where writing what you know would get just so stale. You
Right.
know, I think that is an issue with a lot of college professors is they teach the same class again and again and again and again, and I think it kind of dims their light a little bit.
Yeah. It becomes rote
Hmm.
and not really interesting, not inspiring, not compelling.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Well, where can people find your publications, and would you like to share your socials so people can find you online?
Well, it's very easy. My website is margaretmontet.com.
Hmm.
And on the website, you can sign up for my newsletter, which I do every couple of months whenever I have news to share. So
Hmm.
I won't bombard your email box. And you can also find links to some of my writing there. There's even a video of me reading one of my essays. And I am on Instagram. I'm Margaret the Writer. And in between each word, there's a one underline, Margaret the
Okay.
Writer. So Insta. So that's where you can find me.
Awesome.
Easy enough.
Okay, that is easy. And you have like I don't want to say an unusual name, but it's unusual enough that will be you.
Well, I actually have a cousin with the same name. So that's
Really?
me. Yes, I do. She uses her married name now, but
Hmm.
it will pop up on Facebook.
Hmm.
And she's had some friends who thought I was her, and. So,
That's so
but it's
funny.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for listening and join us next week when we welcome our next guest. And remember, there's always more than one way up a mountain. To be on our show, find us on social media at The Tell Not Show or email us at thetellnotshow@gmail.com. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks again for listening. If you enjoyed the show, consider subscribing and liking. We appreciate all the support. Julia J.K. Allen is an author, editor, and coach and can be found at hijinksrudder.com.
Kirsha Fox is an author, avid reader, gamer, and mother to four, and you can find her at kirshafox.com. Thanks and see you next time.